General Hospital spoilers. Ronnie fell into a coma. The poison found in her body made Tracy flee. The morning light crept into Port Charles like a hesitant confession, golden, fragile, and too calm for what was about to unfold. At General Hospital, the corridors buzzed with tension. Doctors hurried past nurses, alarms flashed, and the sterile smell of disinfectant mingled with dread. Ronnie Spencer was the reason behind the chaos. She had been rushed into the emergency room an hour ago, unresponsive, pale, her pulse erratic. Jason Morgan had found her slumped over on the Quartermain mansion floor, her coffee cup shattered beside her, the faint scent of almonds lingering in the air. Now, as Dr. Finn and Elizabeth Weber fought to stabilize her, Jason stood frozen at the door, his fists trembling. "What happened to her?" he demanded, his voice breaking. Finn's jaw tightened. "She's been poisoned." Jason blinked. "Poisoned? You're saying someone?" Finn didn't let him finish. "Cyanide derivative. Fast-acting. We're doing everything we can." Elizabeth injected an antidote, her hands steady but her eyes wide with fear. "She might not wake up, Jason. It's already in her bloodstream." Jason felt the walls closing in. Ronnie, his confidant, his moral compass after losing his mother, now lay motionless on the hospital bed, her heartbeat flickering like a dying star on the monitor. And across town, Tracy Quartermain was packing a suitcase. Tracy's fingers trembled as she stuffed envelopes, passports, and wads of cash into her leather bag. Her reflection in the mirror looked haunted, not the formidable matriarch of the Quartermain legacy, but a woman cornered by her past. She whispered to herself, "I didn't mean for this to happen." But guilt didn't care about intentions. Just 2 nights ago, Ronnie had stormed into the mansion, waving a folder filled with papers, bank transfers, emails, and something that looked dangerously close to evidence of embezzlement. Ronnie had been digging into ELQ's missing funds, tracing them all the way back to a secret account in Tracy's name. Tracy had begged her to stop. "You don't know what you're getting into," she'd warned. But Ronnie had been relentless. "I'm not afraid of you, Tracy. Or whoever you're protecting." Those words echoed in Tracy's mind now like a curse. Ronnie's conviction had been righteous, but naive. She didn't understand that the money trail didn't just lead to Tracy, it led to someone far worse. Victor Cassadine. Tracy had thought the past was buried with him. But Cassadine's empire had roots deeper than she knew, and someone had revived it. Someone had poisoned Ronnie to silence her. And now Tracy was the only one alive who knew the truth. Detective Dante Falconeri arrived at the hospital just as Ronnie was transferred to ICU. Jason was pacing the hallway, rage barely contained. Dante held up a hand. "Jason, slow down. What do you know?" Jason glared. "Ronnie was fine this morning. She was meeting Tracy at the mansion. Next thing I know, she's dying in my arms." "Meeting Tracy?" Dante repeated. "You sure?" Jason nodded. "She said she had something important. Something that would change everything." Dante pulled out his phone. "We'll need to talk to Tracy." Before he could dial, Elizabeth came out of Ronnie's room, exhaustion written across her face. "She's in a coma," she said softly. "We've stabilized her vitals, but we don't know if she'll wake up." Jason's throat closed. A tear slipped down his cheek before he could stop it. Dante clenched his jaw. "Then we better find out who did this, fast." Tracy drove through the outskirts of Port Charles, the rain slashing against her windshield. Every lightning flash felt like judgment. Her phone buzzed, dozens of missed calls from Ned, Brooklyn, even Monica. She turned the phone off. "Not now," she muttered. "Not when everything's falling apart." She stopped at a deserted motel, checked into a room under the name Tessa Raymond, and locked the door behind her. Her heart thudded in her chest. She opened her bag and pulled out a small vial, the same kind she'd seen in Victor Cassadine's possession years ago. A vial identical to what had been found in Ronnie's system. God, what have I done? But she hadn't poisoned Ronnie. At least, she didn't think she had. Tracy remembered making tea for Ronnie during their meeting. Ronnie had been tense, her eyes darting to the window every few seconds. When she'd handed Ronnie the cup, the younger woman had hesitated but eventually drank it. Minutes later, she'd collapsed. Tracy had panicked, tried to call for help, but when she saw the faint blue tint on Ronnie's lips, she froze. It was the same symptom she'd seen when Cassadine's men used that toxin decades ago. And now it was back. That could only mean one thing. Someone wanted both of them dead. Back in Port Charles, Anna Devane joined the investigation. This isn't random, she told Dante and Jason. Cyanide derivatives like this aren't accessible to the public. This has Cassadine written all over it. Jason's eyes darkened. Victor's dead. Anna's tone was grim. Maybe. But his operations weren't just his. There were others, followers, loyalists. One of them could be cleaning up unfinished business. Which includes Ronnie, Dante muttered. And maybe Tracy. Jason turned. Trace is gone. Her car isn't at the mansion. Her phone's off. Anna's eyes sharpened. Then she's running from something, or someone. 3 days passed. Ronnie's coma lingered, but faint signs of life began to show. Her fingers twitched, her heart rate steadied. Jason never left her side. He held her hand through the long nights, whispering stories about his mother, about how Ronnie had helped him find peace when he couldn't face the world. On the 4th morning, her eyelids fluttered. Ronnie, he whispered, leaning close. It's me. You're safe. Her voice was weak, rasping. No one's safe, not you, not Tracy. Jason froze. Who did this to you? She swallowed painfully. It's not Tracy. She was trying to protect me. The poison, her breath hitched, came from him. Jason frowned. Who? Her eyes opened fully, glazed with fear. Nicholas Cassadine. And then, before Jason could react, the monitor started beeping again. Her body convulsed, alarms shrieking as nurses rushed in. Jason shouted her name, but she was gone again, deeper into the coma. Meanwhile, at the motel, Tracy woke to a knock on the door. She hesitated before opening it a crack. Who's there? A man's voice replied smoothly, room service. She hadn't ordered any. Her instinct screamed. She stepped back just as the door burst open. A tall man in black lunged inside, a syringe glinting in his hand. Tracy grabbed a lamp and smashed it against his head. The man stumbled, but didn't fall. You shouldn't have run, Mrs. Quatermain, he sneered. Mr. Cassadine doesn't like unfinished business. She fled through the back exit, heart pounding, sprinting into the rain-soaked night. Tires screeched behind her as she reached her car and sped away. She didn't know where to go, only that she needed to reach Jason. Jason was still at General Hospital when Tracy burst in, drenched and shaking. Security tried to stop her, but he intervened. Let her through, he said sharply. Their eyes met, guilt against fury. What did you do? He demanded. Trace's lips quivered. I didn't poison her, Jason. I swear to God, I didn't. I was set up. By who? Ronnie said. She said Nicholas, didn't she? Tracy cut in, eyes wild. He's alive, Jason. I've seen him. Jason's world tilted. That's impossible. Tracy grabbed his arm. He's using Victor's old network. Ronnie found proof. That's why she was targeted. He wants control of ELQ and the Quatermain Trust. I was just a pawn. Dante stepped closer. If you have evidence, now's the time. Tracy pulled out a flash drive. Everything's on here. The accounts, the messages, the transfer orders. But if we go after him, he'll come for all of us. Jason's gaze hardened. Let him try. That night, the shadows of Spoon Island came alive. Inside Windermere, Nicholas Cassadine stood before the fireplace, his eyes glinting with cold amusement. So, he murmured, Trace is still breathing. His lieutenant bowed his head. She escaped. Nicholas smiled faintly. No matter. She'll lead them right to me. And when she does, we'll finish what Victor started. He turned to the portrait of Helena Cassadine above the mantel. Family legacy, grandmother. I'll make you proud. Lightning flashed across his face, revealing not the broken man once presumed dead, but a new, ruthless king rising from the ashes. 2 days later, Jason, Anna, and Dante gathered in the GH conference room, reviewing the data Tracy had provided. Every document confirmed her story. Nicholas had been alive for months, operating in secret through offshore accounts, manipulating ELQ's holdings to rebuild the Cassadine empire. Anna whispered, "This is bigger than we thought." Jason stood, fists clenched. "Then we end it." But before they could act, alarms blared again. Ronnie's condition had changed. Jason raced to her room. This time, her eyes were open, fully, clearly. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "You have to stop him, Jason. He's planning something worse." The toxin, it's only the beginning. What do you mean?
Ronnie gripped his hand weakly. He's testing it on the hospital supply chain. It's already here.
Jason's stomach dropped. Oh, my God.
Outside, Anna's phone rang.
The lab confirmed that a new batch of saline solution, distributed across multiple wards, contained trace amounts of the same toxin that poisoned Ronnie. Nicholas wasn't targeting one person anymore. He was targeting General Hospital itself.
Within hours, the hospital went into lockdown.
Staff evacuated patients, alarms blared, and chaos erupted as contaminated supplies were seized. Jason, Dante, and Anna worked side by side, tracing the delivery route. The trail led to an anonymous donor who had funded a recent shipment of supplies. The name on the file, Cassadine Foundation.
Jason's voice was ice.
His inside already.
And he was right.
Nicholas stood in the shadows of the hospital's top floor, overlooking the panic below. Let them run, he whispered to himself. Let them feel what it's like to lose everything. As the night wore on, Tracy sat beside Ronnie's bed.
I'm sorry, dear, she murmured. I dragged you into this.
Ronnie's voice was faint but steady. You can still fix it.
How? Tracy asked bitterly.
I've spent my whole life running from the truth. Then stop running, Ronnie said, eyes fluttering open.
Face him.
Tracy looked at her, then at Jason, who stood in the doorway. She's right, he said. You're the only one who can lure him out.
Tracy nodded slowly. Then let's end this.
The next evening, Tracy announced a public press conference at the Quartermain mansion, claiming to expose new financial partners of ELQ. In reality, it was bait. Hidden security, snipers, and agents surrounded the estate, waiting for Nicholas to take the law. At exactly 8 p.m., he appeared. Dressed in black, calm as ever, he approached the stage where Tracy stood. You never could resist the spotlight, he said. And you never could resist power, she shot back.
Nicholas smirked. You think this ends with me?
You think Port Charles will ever be safe from what's coming? Jason stepped out from behind the curtain, gun raised. It ends now. But before anyone could move, Nicholas pressed a button on a small device, triggering explosions across the estate's grounds. The lights flickered, smoke filled the air. Jason tackled Tracy to the ground as the blast shook the mansion. When the dust settled, Nicholas was gone. Days later, the mansion still smelled of smoke. The authorities were rebuilding, the hospital recovering, and the people of Port Charles trying to move on. Ronnie was awake, frail but alive. Jason sat by her side as she smiled weakly. You saved me, she whispered. He shook his head. You saved yourself. Across the room, Tracy signed a statement, handing over every document to the authorities.
No more secrets, she said quietly.
Anna nodded.
We'll find him.
He can't hide forever. Tracy looked out the window at the distant waves crashing against the cliffs. Here's a Cassadine, she murmured.
They always find a way back.
Weeks later, in a hidden villa overlooking the Mediterranean, a figure poured a glass of wine and watched the news report about General Hospital's recovery.
Nicholas Cassadine smiled.
Until next time, Port Charles. He lifted his glass toward the screen, his eyes gleaming with vengeance. And this time, no one will survive.